Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm gonna take you through Sharknado. For those of you who do not know this, that is the jump trail behind me here with the big gnarly stump that I'm gapping over. And I just wanna show you every single thing that went into all these unique gnarly features on the line and give you a good sense of scale of all the hits. Let's kick off the episode. When I'm starting a brand new trail, I draw all my inspiration from the surrounding landscapes. If you look around me, you can see there's like big rolling hills everywhere, nice green ferns. It is such an amazing landscape. And my eye is just drawn to certain items in the forest, and that's where I tend to go. I'm at the very top of Sharknado here, and you can see it's on the top of a big rock face. This rock face stood out to me from down there when I first hiked in here. And I figured I could probably do something off it. I loved how mossy and scenic it is. And I wanted to do a roll down, but that didn't line up into the rest of the line I kind of had in the back of my mind when I was looking at the lower elevations. It's a short line and I want to maximize speed and flow within the amount of time I have, because this entire line I think is like less than 40 seconds long if I really bomb down it. And my eye was first drawn to this next kind of rock feature below me here, because it has like a natural dip in the like rock and then a little lip you can pop off here. But again, that didn't work because you can see kind of there's the trail behind me that is going this direction, so it'd be a really cut tight corner into where I wanted the rest of the trail to flow. So I axed that idea immediately, and I decided I'm just gonna start on top of the rock because I just love the look of it and it's a cool place to start. And the next thing my eye drew to was this big dead stump down here. And I decided, okay, that's a nice lineup for the very first berm on the trail. Things start off with rolling down the small side of this rock face, nice little mellow roll in, and then you have a berm right away behind me here. And this berm isn't like super fast or high speed or anything, but it gives you that initial pump to start getting you going. And that makes it a really nice setup, a nice chill start to what gets intense really quick. Since we're dealing with pretty flat grade here, I wanted a way to generate speed really fast. So I built two big rollers that you can manual through if you want. They're pretty spaced out, but if you manual through them, it really gives you a lot of momentum. And even just pumping them and riding straight through them will also do the same. They're nice and gradual, nice and long. And then they go into like what was a hole in the forest that I shelved out and I mellowed it out a bit so I could have a step down right out of the dip that you can see behind me here. So I turned a hole into a nice deep compression for something you can pop out of right away. Coming out of this nice natural dip, we have the very first step down. This thing is not huge, but it is completely blind and a bit gnarly because of the lineup. If you look, you have a tree here on the rider's right on the outside. So that is quite close to the outside edge of the takeoff. And then you have like a quite narrow landing, I would say 4 feet wide, which, I mean, it seems pretty ample, but when you're coming off something blind, the wider you can go, the better. It's banked out really quick and there's some stuff in the way, and it does shoot you pretty inside. So you have to make sure to hit it as outside as you can, stay fully committed and really line yourself up for that next hit. Ideally, you want to hit the center of that landing every single time. Here I am on the takeoff. It is not like a super large takeoff or anything, but it does fade away really fast. Coming onto into the gap here, I'm looking at like a 5 foot to 6 foot drop down to the landing. I would say the gap is probably around 20 feet, so it's not huge, but the fact that you're coming out of like fairly flat terrain and it's completely blind makes this whole setup pretty gnarly. This is where stuff starts to get really crazy, because from this point forward, you can't just hit a single hit halfway down. You have to hit every single feature because they're so tight and fast together that you need to hit one feature to make it into the next, and it makes it really intense and high speed, and you're definitely on your toes the whole time. All right, so we're coming down the first landing here, and I would say like immediately, like pretty quick here, you have to like really skid to even stop. You have another step down. This one's a speed gap, flat takeoff, and you're just like airing into the abyss again. Again, another blind takeoff over the ferns, and then you have a landing down there that pockets into a berm right away. It's pretty mental. It is such a fun, fast feeling, and it is just like full out speed the whole time. When I was building this trail, the idea was to slowly scale up every single hit as I get down the line. So as you carry more momentum, the next hit is a little longer, and then every single jump is an equal reach. That was kind of the idea. It sort of worked out that way. This one is a bit longer. I would say a 25 to 30 foot gap, depending on where you land. Let's get up to the takeoff and you can get a good sense of the size here. Here I am at the edge of the takeoff. As you can see, it is quite large, and you can like just see where you're supposed to be going into once you're on it. But before you even get into the takeoff, you cannot see what's coming. And it is like a pretty like hard one to clear in comparison to the first hit. You really have to like let off your brakes, pump through, and then really snipe this landing down here. Landing on jump number 2, we're into a berm right away. It is like a rocket speed fast corner because you have like no space. Your front wheel's basically at the start of this corner when you land, and then you just rip through the turn, and then the next feature is even longer than the first 2. This one is about another 5 feet longer than number 2. It really stretches out. And what's cool about this feature is it's kind of like the squirrel catcher of the line. I haven't seen anyone else get past this hit at all. One other person I know of tried it, nose cased it because they went too inside off the takeoff here, and that's the trick. You need to go at least as high as all my tire ruts right in here. If you go any lower, you're not going high enough to really pop into that landing properly. And it's funny, like if I hit this a little wrong, my entire run is messed up. Following the third jump, we have a long low gap about 20 feet long that shoots you directly into the biggest step down on the trail. We're at the top of the big dog, the big step down. This thing is pretty gnarly. This is probably the most intimidated I've felt this entire process of building and testing these features because it is so blind. Those big massive ferns block everything. I mean, like just look at this. You can't even see what you're about to air into. You can't even see a landing in front of you until you're halfway through the air. I think I've had just as many comments from people that ride these trails in this area about this step down right here as I have about the stump gap. And I think it's because it is so big and blind and intimidating. Like look how long this gap is. This is the longest gap yet by far. And it is quite a big step down. You're stepping down at least 10 feet. You cannot see anything at all because look how tall these ferns are. First of all, you're coming off like a shoulder high takeoff if you were to go off the very top edge. And then these ferns are massive. They're like up to my neck almost in some spots. Like look at this. They're so tall. And the landing gets blocked by the ferns, so you can't actually see what you're looking at. And here's the top of the landing right here. It is quite a big gap. The landing is also pretty short. You really have to nail that speed, dial it in. This is the center of the gap here. Gives you an amazing sense of scale. This is such a mega hit. It is so much fun and it makes incredible photos. Coming down this sniper landing behind me, you have immediately a corner that you have to set up for, and you have to hit outside. You have some things to avoid, like a couple big rocks right here, some roots. You really have to get the nice inside line, or outside line, I mean. Stay high on this berm because it's gonna shoot you into a steep takeoff right away, which will air you over top of this stump. And that is honestly the most iconic feature I've built on this trail so far. I know the trail's not even a year old, so I don't know if iconic is the right word for it, but it is the hit that gets the most comments. And yeah, this is really intense because your setup has to be so on point. All right, here's the stump gap from the side, and many of you have seen me hit this a handful of times on the GoPro. It doesn't look massive from a GoPro unless you really overshoot it, like that very first time I hit it and just like went to the moon and went past the landing. That was terrifying. Oh! Whoa, that was a scary overshoot. When I first built this, I had no idea if I'd be able to get over the stump because it is actually 11 feet tall. So even though I have a big lip here, I didn't think I'd be able to achieve a lip this size with a setup this tight out of a corner that sharp. And the whole combination is just bonkers and was so hard to calculate and figure out. We probably rebuilt the corner into it like 3 or 4 times before it really felt normal and before I committed to doing the whole line. So it was quite the process. And then the landing here. The landing is actually really close to the back side of the stump. There's not a huge gap there. And that's because I was just so worried about even getting over the stump. I didn't know how far I'd be able to go. But after that first hit, when I went way too big, I quickly realized if you do no brake checking and just pump through, I could have made this way bigger. You can tell this tree was like hit by a strike of lightning or something because it's completely hollow in the middle and really cool looking. And yeah, this gives you an idea of how big it actually is. I'm 5.5 feet tall. This is 11 foot something. I can't remember the exact measurements, but it's more than 11 feet high. Once you land the stump gap, it's kind of a relief because the gnarliest parts of the entire trail are done, but then you're into the most technical bits of the trail after that. And coming into this, it's flat, it is so sandy. I mean, like, look at this ground. It is just like pure sand that is washing away. It is not ideal for a flat section of trail where you need to carry as much speed as possible. There's also a massive bundle of roots right here that I didn't want to kill and take out. So I left that, built it into a roller as a speed bump or like a speed pump. And then you have this shark fin hip right here, which is also like a bit of a scale down from the rest of the trail. I would say it's only like a 15-foot gap maybe. It's not massive. You can see from the side here quite well, like takeoff, landing. So not a small jump, but I mean, it's pretty much a reach still for how small it is, because you really have all your speed being killed through there. I do take a pedal stroke or two after the stump gap to really give myself good flow coming into this. And I want to do something about that. I want to change it. I'm not quite sure what that needs to be dialed in. Maybe a bigger gap on the stump gap. Maybe I do just like bite the bullet and maybe do like a second speed roller or something, build up this landing behind me here. There's a few things I could do. And then I go into like a really tight, fast lily pad feature where you air out of this into that landing down there. And then all of a sudden you're like landing and you're right ready to air. There's like not even a bike length in between these two features here. They are so tight. And then you land on the backside of this fallen over tree behind me, and you can kind of chill for a split second because you don't need to worry about speed anymore. The trail where it's all intense and tight together is kind of over now. We do have a step down there behind me, but it is a brake check, and I did that intentionally to make it more trickable in the future. When you're gonna like throw a more gnarly trick, it's nice if you can like touch a bit of brake versus really push through. So I kept that in mind. For that reason, I'm gonna keep this gap kind of shorter, but it is yet again another completely blind hit. Because of where this jump sits, it's really hard for me to get you a side profile. We're just surrounded in like knee-deep ferns, or more like neck-deep ferns. Look at this, everywhere in this area. And you can still see though, that is the takeoff, that piece of dirt right up there. That's the backside of the takeoff. Then you come down and the landing is literally the entire hillside. You have this giant long hill. This was really fun to build because I literally just cleared ferns, raked it, rode it in, threw some dirt where I needed it. It was really sick, and you generate a ton of speed for the final speed gap at the bottom there. How big of a hill do you need to clear the longest jump on the trail, you ask? The answer is a really big one. Here's the bottom of the landing, and here's the top of the landing. We're back into the usual theme of really tight hits together. The second you get to the bottom of this big long hill, you're on this takeoff, and this is the final speed gap. I wish you could keep going, but the terrain gets flat, and we're at the very bottom here. The road is right there, and this is super fun. It is the longest jump on the line. I would say it's between 30 to 35 feet long, so quite sizable. And when I first built this, it was so terrifying because I didn't have this nice big case pad right here on the landing. It was actually like way lower. The landing didn't start till about down here, so it was completely blind. It was right behind this little tree here, and you couldn't see anything from the takeoff. The gap was probably a few feet longer, and it was less than 2 bike lengths long, which is a really sketchy way to end a nice flowy trail. So I built it up. I made the last hit a little more mellow, but a lot more flow, and it is so fun now. It is such a great way to end the trail. You have a ton of speed when you land too. This jump blows by so fast on my GoPro clip because I have so much speed coming into it. I'm just feathering my brake down that big hill and flying off it. But this gives you a good sense of scale. I'm basically in the center of the gap right here, or I'm more a little close to the landing. But yeah, here's the landing right here. Nice big transition. And then the takeoff is way back here. So coming off it, I do have a really nice field of view. I can see the landing coming in, and it is a pretty relaxing hit now that I have dialed it in. And that's what's crazy about jumps like this. The easier you make them to ride means the less intimidating they are, even if they're this big. This is such a great jump and such a nice wrap to this really incredible jump line that I'm super proud of. Now that you've seen the entire trail, let's go do a lap down it. Oh yeah! There's Sharknado. Woo! So sick. And that's the bottom of Sharknado. I literally finished building this trail only 2 weeks ago, and I already get a nostalgic feeling when I walk through the line. That's how like incredible of a location this is. This forest is so nice, and it's been such an amazing experience just building in here and documenting the entire journey. And if you want to see some raw shredding footage of Sharknado, check out the feature video on my channel here. It is called Changing Seasons. It showcases everything up until the stump gap and then a few other random things in this area. The last few features I haven't filmed properly yet, but that will be going down in a future video. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and it helped you get an idea of like how big this stuff actually is in person, because I know it doesn't always translate to that in video. All right, thanks so much you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.